Here's everything you need to know to master the manipulation of dynamic data in Builderius. At the end of this video, you'll be able to work with any data type, whether it is a number, a string, an array, a boolean, an object, a nested object, whatever data type, it wouldn't matter. You'll be a master at working with that data. Builderius is quite powerful and very flexible, and it pairs well with Cloudways Hosting, who are the sponsors of today's video. Cloudways is a powerful managed web hosting platform with tons of flexibility. You have the option to choose between Cloudways Flexible and Cloudways Autonomous. For the Autonomous, it is fully managed, so you just put it in and then it auto-scale based on your resources and everything that you need. Or you can have some control, so you can choose between the flexible option and the autonomous option. You have lots of success stories, people who are using Cloudways and they have been happy with it so far. So they have lots of testimonials. You can also choose between using WordPress. You can use optimized WordPress. You can use WooCommerce, PHP only, Laravel. So it doesn't only work with WordPress. It also works with other platforms. If you need that, you can use Magento and so on. And you can decide, let's say we go ahead and choose the optimized WordPress. You just have to give it a name, the name of your server, the name of your project. So let's give the name. And you can go ahead and choose what type of server you want. So do you want DigitalOcean, Voltaire, Linode, AWS, Google Cloud? You can also choose to scale. Let's say you have a high-end e-commerce platform with tons of subdomains and everything, so you can choose to go with the highest end. But if you just have a basic website, you can choose to go with the lowest end, and you just pay roughly about $14 a month, and you can get a good hosting, and it works fast. You don't really need a ton of resources. It is efficient, so even with the lowest resources, everything works quite well. It is also very easy to connect your domain name once you've purchased a domain, by just going to domain management and then you click on add domain. You set up the domain name like devden2.com, then you save changes, and all you have to do is now go ahead and maybe make it to be your primary domain, and you set up all of your DNS servers with your domain name registrar, and that's it. You get your custom domain name in Cloudways with so much ease. To get started with Cloudways, simply head over to devdens.link/Cloudways and you get some bonus. If you go to the pricing, it has really good pricing. So you can get started, like I mentioned, with $14 a month, you can get started and you can go as you need. You can scale up and get good starting price. I hope you get Cloudways, and once you start using Cloudways, please let me know in the comments if it is good for you. Here we have a sample JSON data, which contains the typical data types you can expect in Builderius. So we have an ID, which is a number field. We have some string fields. We have an object. We have an array. We have a date field and even a boolean and so on. You can see how it is formatted. So we have an object. It has nested objects and so on. I've loaded it into Builderius using the PHP function, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that the data has been put into Builderius. It can come from your MetaFuel plugin like ACF, ACBT, MetaBox, and so on. Or it can even come from a function, so maybe a shortcode or any other type of function. The main function we use for manipulating data in Builderius is called the expression result. We just have to type expression and it will autocomplete for us. So we have expression result, and then it has a parameter called expression within it. Within that expression is where we now put in our data. So first I will start by showing you how to put in static data. To put in static data, you have to wrap them in double curly brackets, and then we can put our static data into that. So the first type of static data is a number. So I can just type 5, get data, and you see expression result, column, and the output is 5. If I want to convert it to a string, then I just put quotation marks to wrap around the 5. I'm using single quotes because I'm already within double quotes. So I'll do get data. And you can see the expression result is now returning 5 as a string rather than as a number. We can also return an array by using square brackets. So I'll put square brackets. And then when I want to use a string, I'll put quotes. I can put like David, comma, and then I can put a number like 5, and maybe another number which is returned as a string within quotes, and that can be like 7. So let's go ahead and do get data. And see, within square brackets, we have David as a string, the number 5, and the string 7. The other thing we can do is boolean, which is the true or false. So I can just return true without quotation marks, get data, and see expression result is equal to true. So that's how we can create data. Now let's see how we can access data. There are 3 types of manipulation we can do with data. We can do data accessing, data modification, and data evaluation. To access data, we use one of 2 ways, either the dot notation or square brackets. And let's say we're trying to access the title within the raw data. Keep in mind that we're trying to manipulate the data within our dynamic data editor, but the data is already loaded into our editor. So we don't really need to manipulate the data if we're just going to return the data as is. What do I mean? So now we have our data that says the ID. If I want to access this ID within the builder, then I can go ahead and close the dynamic data window and I can return the ID directly. So what we're focusing on today is not about returning the raw data in the builder. It's about being able to access the data for further manipulation. Let's say I want to access the title within raw data. So I'll start with expression result. Then it returns expression as a parameter. Within that expression is where I'll now start accessing the data. Like I said, you can access using the dot notation or using the square brackets. To use dot notation, say I want to access the title, I'll start with the first thing I want to access, which is raw data. That is raw underscore data. Then I'll use the dot notation and title. Notice that I didn't put the curly brackets. It is not necessary when we're accessing a variable. If we're accessing static data, then we need to put the curly brackets, but for a regular variable, we don't need that. We just put in the name of the variable and we can start manipulating that variable. So if I do get data, now the expression result will return at the bottom. As you can see, expression result and the title, which is the Midnight Garden, it's in quotation marks, meaning that it is a string. Let's say we're trying to access the first name within the author, which is within the raw data. You can say raw data dot author dot the first name. And then I'll say get data and scroll to the bottom. You can see expression result. It gives you the name. And that's how you can access nested data. Then the other way is using square brackets. So I can replace these dots with square brackets and they will still work. So I can go ahead and get data. And you see, we still return the right data. The benefit of using the square bracket is when our variable name has something like a dash or a special character, and that will not work well with Builderius because Builderius only likes to work with numbers, letters, and underscores. When your variable name has other things, then you'd have to use the square brackets to access that variable. The other thing we can do is we can now go ahead and modify data. So we'll start by showing you with some static data and see how you can modify data. So let's go back to our expression results and I'll delete the dynamic data. Let me go ahead and hide the initial data so that we can have a clean slate to work with. So let's say I'm trying to do something like multiplication, addition, division, and so on. So let's open the double curly brackets because I'm working with static data for the first example. So let's say I want to do 5 multiplied by 2. That's how easy it is. I'll just put 5 asterisk 2 and then I'll say get data. And you can see the result is 10. If I want to do division, I can say 5 divided by 2 and the answer is 2.5. So we can do arithmetic directly within Builderius expression result. You can see everything within the documentation under the built-in functions. There are arithmetic functions, array functions, Boolean functions, and so on. So what we're doing now is the arithmetic functions. And there are other functions we can actually use, such as the ceiling function and the floor function. So let's say, for example, we have this 2.5, and I want to get the ceiling. So I'll put CEIL, open regular bracket, and close the regular bracket. Let's go ahead and say get data. And see the ceiling is 3. I can do floor, which means that you round down, get data, and the answer is 2. We can also perform some array functions, like summing up the numbers within an array, or counting the number of items within an array, and so on. Let's see some examples. So let's say we have an array of numbers 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to find the sum of those numbers. All we do is, let me give a result like sum, colon, and then expression result. Within the expression, I would reference the raw array, which is the variable. And what I'll just go ahead and do is write sum as a function name, open the regular bracket, and wrap it around the variable name. Let's go ahead and do get data. You can see the sum is 14. It is adding all of the numbers within the array together. If I want to count just the number of items within the array, I can use the count function. That is quite useful. I press the count and I do get data. You can see there are 4 numbers within the array. This is really useful when you have an array of loop items and you want to count how many items are there, probably for your page numbering. Then you can just do count and then you put in the variable name or the array. Then you can go ahead and manipulate data. So like converting a data type from one data type to the other. So let's say we want to convert this array into strings. We can use what we call the join function. So instead of count, I can say join, put the variable name, and then put a comma. And how do we want to join them? Is it by comma separated values? Is it by dot separated values or space separating, and so on? So I'll put in quotes, maybe comma, and then do get data. That will convert the array into a string. You can see all of those functions within the Builderius documentation. The one I'm showing last is the join function. So just the name of the array and how do you want the items to be separated. Now let's take it a step further and see how we can manipulate some rating data within an array and get the average of those ratings. Somewhere at the bottom, we have some user ratings. We have the user ID and then the rating within curly brackets, which means that these are an array of objects. So our goal here is we want to get these objects called user ratings. We want to pluck out just the rating field, and then we want to be able to get the average of those ratings. So let's see how we can do that. So the first thing is we want to get access to the user ratings, which is under the raw data. So I'll start by doing the expression result. Within the expression, I'll say raw underscore data dot and then user ratings. Let's go ahead and get data and see if it's getting the right data. You can see we're getting the right data now. So I can go ahead and hide the original using @private. Get data. So we have our data source. What we're trying to get is the rating. So we can use a function called the pluck function. So within Builderius, there's a function called pluck, which means that we have an array of objects and want to just get a specific property. We want to get the rating property and return it as the array of just those ratings. So let's go back and I'll just go before the regular quotes. I'll put pluck, I'll open the regular bracket, and at the end, I'll close the bracket. Then before the end of the bracket, I'll put the comma, put 2 single quotes, and within the single quotes, I'll put the property, which is called rating. Then I'll go ahead and get data. And you can see it's getting the rating from the array of objects. And then now if I want to do the sum of these numbers, all I have to do is go before the function name of the block and then put sum, open the regular bracket and close the bracket after everything. Get data, and the sum is 18. Let me go ahead and say that is total underscore rating as the key. Then let's say I want to get the total number of ratings. So I can do the same thing. Let's go ahead and just copy what we had before and then change it from total rating to rating count. And this time, instead of sum, I'll do a count. I'll do get data. And see there are 4 of them, and the total rating is 18. So finally, I can now do a division of the total rating over the rating count to get the average rating. So I can give another expression result and say average AVG underscore rating, colon, expression result. Since I'm just going to be referencing my variable names, I don't need to put double curly brackets. So I'll say the total rating divided by the rating underscore count. And then I'll say gets data. And then I can get my average rating as easy as that. The final thing we look at is data evaluation, which simply means conditional logic. For example, if A equal to B, then do C, otherwise do D. Simple as that. So let's see it in action. So let's say we have our raw data again, and we have a nested property called isEbook, which returns either true or false. I want to do conditional logic that if the isEbook is true, show that button. If it is false, then maybe show an address or a contact form. So how can we do it? We can do expression results, and we can access that data, which is raw underscore data dot isEbook, get data, and it returns true. Because it's a boolean of true or false, we can now go ahead and do conditional logic, and to do that is using the ternary notation. So this is the condition. Then I can put a question mark. I can say if it is true, in quotes, say yes. Otherwise, using the colon, you can put quotes again and say no. Let's go ahead and get data. And you can see yes, because the raw underscore data isEbook was equal to true. So it did yes. If it was equal to false, it will have said no. This also works directly in the builder. So for example, let's go ahead and close this dynamic data. So let's say we have our button, and what to do the dynamic data that says if the isEbook equal to true, show buy link. If it is false, then show contact us. So I can come to my buy link. I'll just cut that data out, use the dynamic data tag, and search for isEbook. So if isEbook, go into the square brackets. That's where we start doing our expressions, because in the dynamic data builder, we're using the double curly brackets. Outside, because it's a global variable now, we're using the square brackets, but it's the same expression results. So I can put a space, put the question mark, put the string, which is by link, otherwise put the colon and say contact us. And there we go. We get back our button. So let me go back and convert that isEbook into false. So I'll go to my dynamic data, into my raw data, search for isEbook. Right now it's true. If I convert it to false, get data, check, you can now see it has changed to contact us. And that's how we can manipulate data in any shape or form. The documentation will be out soon, so watch out for the documentation and it will help you out. But basically that's it. That's how you can access data, you can modify data, and you can perform some conditional logic. I hope this video has helped you out. If it has, please do leave a thumbs up so I know it helped you out, and I'll see you in the next one.